Matting really quick because it's going to make our pieces look more display ready. It's better when we put them on the thing. So we're going to use one of Michael's prints. On his proposal sheet, he said he was going to mat one of his. I've got lots of mat board, and when you're ready to go, I'll get out some of the colors. You can go through it. A lot of times we use like an off-white or a black. It's just kind of standard. But this one's pretty bright and fun, so I thought we'd complement it with a green mat. And the first thing we have to do, this is going to take some measuring, okay, and some math and whatnot. So what we usually like to do when we mat a print is to have a little bit of the border, the white showing, and especially down here where we have our signature and our like edition number down here, we actually want to see that when we mat it, so we don't want to mat right up to the edge of this. Okay, so our hole, when we cut out our mat, we need to make sure that it leaves. Measure the size that we want our thing to be, and I'm going to look at, I think 5 should be nice by, let's go 5 by 7, and I'm going to want to add at least an inch probably. I mean, an inch is only this much, so we probably want a mat that's a little bit bigger than that. It's like a frame around it, so I'm going to go at least probably 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches on every side. It's going to add 3 inches to each dimension. So we said 5 by 7, so it's going to be 8 by 10. I'm going to cut that on the paper cutter. It doesn't make the greatest cut. If you want a really, really clean cut, you can do it with an X-Acto blade, but I'm just going to do it on the paper cutter. It goes a little bit faster and it's pretty clean. So I'm going to cut this down to 8 by 10. This was just a straight cut along the edges. It's nothing exciting. But with mat board, it's a color on this surface. It's like a laminate, and then it's like white underneath, and that's we want to have this bevel cut, so it'll be really cool. It'll look like green with like this little bevel cut of white on the edge, and that's what this is all about. This. Now I can set this really easily to 1.5 inches, which is what we decided we wanted our border to be. There's a little ruler, and it goes all the way up to like 4 inches, and I can set it to 1.5 inches. There's 1 inch, and I set this guy. Read the scale from this side. I set it at 1.5, and I turn these little knobbers, and this should set this to 1.5. I'm going to take the cutter off. This guy we have to be careful with. It has a very sharp razor blade inside of it, so we're going to be very gentle with this. And what I like to do before I do any cutting is I like to at least sketch out what my border is going to be in here. So I light it up here. It just hits this little bar. This comes down. I sketch this out, and this is what my window is going to look like. Okay, so this gives me an idea of what, when it gets cut, what it's going to look like. So if I set it in here, I usually set it up a little bit off to the side, make sure it's tall enough. Yes, that looks good, and make sure that it's wide enough if I slide this down. You have to have this overlap for when you put this in here, you're going to tape it into your frame, and if it's exactly the same size as your piece of paper, it'll just fall through the window. That doesn't work. Okay, so you have to have a little bit of overlap. From the back, on the back side, so we're going to set that in there. We know where everything is. And there's a reason we made all these lines again, too. There's also a reason, another reason. And you can cut whichever way you want to. This is more comfortable for me. I'm right-handed, so I like to pull it down this way. This line right here on the cutter shows where it's going to start cutting, okay? So when you line it up here, Michael, get a close-up on this. You want this to be close to this line you already drew, okay? The top line, because I'm cutting this side. I want it to start up here and then go all the way down to there. It's going to help me see what I'm doing. So I'm going to push down on this metal thing. It's going to cut. And then I'm going to try to keep everything nice and square, and this is the tricky part, and pull the whole thing through. I got a nice sharp blade in there, so it should cut. And then again, when this lines up with this line, that's when I stop. I pull that back up and stop, and it looks like it cut. I'm going to slide this in here. I'm going to do the same thing on all 4 sides. Line this up with this line, push down the blade, pull it through, and stop when I get to this other line that I've already sketched in there. Pop it up. Sometimes the corners stick, so you kind of want to make sure that it pops out there. Otherwise, you can go in with an X-Acto blade and cut it. The thing is if you get sloppy cuts here, and for some reason the colored surface of the mat tears, it looks really sloppy. So you want to have a nice, clean. This is one of those perfectionist kind of things. So if you're kind of a messy, painterly artist like myself, this is one of those things that'll be hard for you. It took me a long time to master matting, and it's still not something I love, but we have to do it because we have to display our work. Okay, so it should. I got a little, see how it's hanging on there? This is where I didn't cut quite far enough on there. I'm going to grab an X-Acto blade. When you've got a little grabby corner, you're just going to kind of want to line it up and cut it real carefully with an X-Acto. And this is the little mitered edge that I was talking about, the little beveled edge. It makes it look professional and clean. And this should all fit on here really beautifully, Michael. You can stand up and get a shot of what it's going to look like. Make sure it fits. See, look, Miss Murphy does math.
All good besides the red print.
See, this is exciting. No, the red print looks nice. And what you're going to do is you're going to line it up. Nice. And then what I just have people do, and this isn't the super duper professional way, but it will serve your purposes, and it will make it look nice for us when we do our displays and whatnot is we're just going to tape with masking tape on the back a print that looks pretty nice, pretty professional. Oh, isn't that nice? I can hang it in the hallway and not be embarrassed.